welcome Australia again to the Stand Up Australia podcast. Stand Up sits down with a contrarian conversation, rebutting the mainstream narrative. We've got Robyn joining us again tonight for our good news special at the end of the year. This will be our last show of the year. We are all looking forward to a break as much as you can in these crazy times.
A break from the insanity would be good.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we're going to get that, but at least we might be able to sort of switch off for a few weeks. So we spent the week sort of getting some good news stories together. There has been a fair bit, which has been great. There usually is. Just had to, I start the sort of the day or even the night before. I start a lot of the time as well compiling the stories, and I've got so many stories there. So it really was like trying to find the needles in the haystack there, just like what's happened last week. Oh, there we go. There's a story I saved. There's another one. So it did take a little bit longer to compile this today, but I think it's well worth it.
Yeah, when you put that filter of it has to be a good news story on, that certainly kind of narrows the field.
Yep. I like as I think James Evan Pilato on the good news. Good news next week. Not good news.
New World
next week. Who says not unmitigated good news. So
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So we do have a bit of good news. Have you had any good news this week, Robyn?
I can't say I have. Honestly, I've got to be honest. It's been a bit of a crap of a week just with tech challenges and whatnot. So yeah, I'm sure if I sat down and thought long and hard enough, I could come up with something, but it's just not coming to mind. So sorry to launch it on a bummer. Oh no, sorry. Yes, good news. The drought's broken. The drought has broken, and it is amazing. It is amazing just how green a landscape that was just parched brown can turn after even a day of rain. It's like all those little seeds, they were just waiting on the ground, and then you get a deluge. And of course, being in central Queensland, it's subtropical climate, so when it rains, it rains. It doesn't mess around. It really comes down, and suddenly everything's just gone whoop, and it's this green carpet. It looks like Ireland, so it's emerald green everywhere, where it was just like dusty and brown before. So that's exciting. That's good news. Water tank filling up very nicely.
When you see the green, you really realise why there's so much cattle growing up here. It was one of the shocks. I just thought it was so dry up here, but it's really not at all. It's just beautiful. You get the nice green pastures going on. I just mowed my lawn last week, and I think within 2 days we'd had a fair bit of rain the last week, and within 2 days it looked exactly the same. And I hadn't mowed it for like maybe 3 weeks before that, so I might have to go out again this week.
Yes, it's coming into lawn mowing season. That is for sure.
Unfortunately, it's all right. It's it can be relaxing sometimes if you've got the right podcast.
Yeah. Well, I've got to say the roos love it. The roo population just seems to have increased overnight. Again, a couple of days rain and the roos are just out boing, 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 hopping through everywhere, excited about the green grass.
Yeah, if you weren't vegan, you'd be another food source there for you.
No, I just like watching them. They're really gorgeous. They're really gorgeous.
They don't taste too bad either, to be honest.
Oh, well, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. No, they are pretty tough. So, yeah, there are other things I prefer apart from that. But, yeah. Anyway, we'll get on to the first good news story, and we'll start it with a video. Now, I'm not sure if you can see the screen.
Not yet.
No. That's right. You'll be able to hear it, but I've put a link down there. There's only one video tonight, so we won't worry too much about it.
A populist turn to the right in some European countries is catching the world's attention after a longtime right-wing political leader appears primed to be the next prime minister of the Netherlands. A close ally in France, meanwhile, could get a boost from elections there next year. Chris Lidse in Rome looks now at the potential impact of all this, what it all means. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. It's a victory that's shaken up politics across Europe, where mass immigration and a struggling post-pandemic economy are triggering a backlash.
He's been called the Dutch Donald Trump, and not just for his hair. The hard-right firebrand is against mass immigration and has said he wants to close Islamic schools and mosques. And now, following a stunning victory, Geert Wilders and his party are in pole position to form a coalition to lead the nation, with Wilders as its next prime minister.
En ik zeg jullie, Nederland.
The people have spoken, he says. We are sick and tired of this. We will make sure the Dutch people will be first again. It's the latest in a string of recent right-wing victories across Europe, making stunning gains in Austria and Germany, winning parliament seats in Greece, and general elections in Finland and Italy. Upset celebrated by Marine Le Pen, the leader of France's far right, who now has a considerable chance of becoming France's next president.
Ça n'est pas un hasard.
It's no accident that in many countries in Europe, the parties that defend the nation are winning, she says. But why the sudden wins? A post-pandemic economy and runaway mass immigration to start, says political expert Natalie Tocci.
There's definitely a backlash to the immigration, which tends to become a backlash when the economy starts suffering. And in general, the sort of economic fallout of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, of course, we have war in the Middle East. You know, the general climate of uncertainty has really put a sort of a downer on economic recovery post-pandemic.
All of it leading to a surge for the hard right and fears among its opponents, like at this rally in the Netherlands.
I don't want to normalize racism, divisiveness, and I think it's important to remind everyone that these norms can easily shift.
So we have the uprising of the right. Now, I'm not saying this is a good news story because I'm a right-winger and I love the fact that right-wingers are getting everywhere, but it does tell me a little bit about what's going on in the world right now. So,
I mean, hard right, far right, Donald Trump, Putin bad. I mean, geez, these journalists, they have such a limited playbook, don't they? They're so astonishingly unoriginal. There's just this small number of catchphrases. I mean, why not throw in anti-vaxxer and conspiracy theorist and be done with it, right? We'll just fill up the bingo card. I find these journalists, you know, in inverted commas, you know, about as journalistic as our mate Cam from Crikey. They're just so absolutely stunningly unimaginative, unoriginal. They just rehash the same, you know, they serve up the same bilge over and over. Anyway, that's my rant.
no, you're right there. It's just, if it's, I think we've said this many times, if you're not far left, you're far right, you know what I mean? So it's...
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the horseshoe theory of politics suggests that there's not a big difference between the authoritarian left and the authoritarian right. They kind of meet in the middle someplace. So I'm a libertarian, like, forget your left, forget your right. I'm just against big government and I'm against centralized authority. Simples.
Definitely, and that's the other thing we've got going on at the moment. We've got Javier Milei, who's just been elected into Argentinian as the Argentinian president, is it, or the prime minister?
President, yes, they have a presidential system there, and boy, he's got a mouth on him, hasn't he?
Yeah,
It's quite entertaining to listen to that.
Does. He's really good to listen to, actually. I mean, I wish I actually understood Spanish so we didn't have to listen to a really tacky, you know, voiceover by someone else.
I'm sure there's a certain color that you miss when you have to rely on the translation. But the one thing, well, I suppose there are a few things. One major thing that kind of bugs me about this Milei is that he's announced his desire to convert to Judaism. Like, okay,
yeah,
I know what to make of that.
Yes, yep. All these political elections they seem like a really great thing when they first come out, but they've all got their issues. Issues.
There was such enthusiasm when Giorgia Meloni was elected as he's president in Italy too, isn't it? No,
they've got prime minister and president over there. So
Yeah, well, anyway, when she was voted in, and the freedom movement was really excited. Oh wow, she's like a family first candidate and all this, and then she turns out to be pretty much just a globalist sock puppet. So yeah, I mean, look, I don't get too excited about any of these selections, as James Corbett always describes them, but what I guess I find reassuring is that the people are apparently voting in politicians who, as they perceive it, are populist, that is, acting in the interests of the people, which of course is then characterized by these pathetic journalists as democracy failing. I think that's democracy working, actually.
yeah,
Like a bunch of people decided they didn't like the globalist will that was being served up to them, and so now they want something different. Now, will they get what they hope they're getting from these people? I'm dubious about that, but they are at least saying we're not buying in to your claptrap anymore. We don't want to have our national identity just melted down into some soup, into some melange, and we think your climate policy is not about making the climate better; it's about making us poorer. And we don't want your stinking jabs. And, as we'll get to in a later story, we don't want your stinking government schools neither. So,
yes,
yeah, this is the people finally pushing back. About time.
yeah, they are. I mean, we've spoken about this in length over the last probably the last month or so about the immigration. We even got into the Kalergi plan and the conspiracy theory that they plan to make the Europe a race of, what do they call them? Afro. I can't remember the exact term, but it's
Afro-Asiatic or something like
yeah,
that.
Afro-Asiatic race. So everybody was the same color, and there was no national. There was no national identity for any country. Everybody was European, and there was no Netherlands, there was no Germany, there was no Poland, there was nothing. It was just all the same massive homogenous soup of people. And I think you see that, and people aren't silly, whether or not as that is the Kalergi plan was a plan. Whether or not that's going on at the moment is it seems like it is, but I mean it's also just a natural thing that happens after we go and rape and pillage these countries in Africa and the Middle East, and they want to come somewhere else that is.
But I'm sure that's a coincidence, Mitch. I'm sure
course
the
it is.
people who provoke these wars don't just have in mind that war is incredibly profitable. War is a racket, as Smedley Butler so aptly put it. So it's going to make a lot of money for the military-industrial complex. But added bonus, you're also going to displace, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people. You're not just going to displace them, but you've also really pissed them off. So the countries that they flee to, they are not just going to have positive feelings toward those countries, because in many cases the countries that they flee to are also engaged in screwing up their home country that they didn't actually want to leave. Again,
Yes.
that's a coincidence.
Definitely. As I say, diversity is a strength, but not in these cases. There was an article I read, I might have even put it in the show notes here, about why it seems to be a lot different in Australia about our diversity here. And you can make an argument to say it's really worked quite well here, because we've got, all our countries, all our little towns and cities, we've obviously got our little Chinatowns, and we've got our little Italys and all that. But everybody here, they come because they want to be Australian, And the problem is when you've got mass migration like they have in Europe right now, it just creates this. You have these little ghettos that start up, and
there are enclaves. And I mean, when I was growing up in Sydney, there were parts of Sydney that were most definitely the places where the suburbs where the Greeks clustered, and the suburbs where the Lebanese clustered, and so forth. And over time, those people who were initially clustered together, they dispersed out into the wider community, and then kind of each subsequent wave of immigrants comes in, and they have their couple of suburbs that they cluster in, and then eventually again they disperse out. And I don't think we're seeing that pattern in these flashpoints in Europe. They cluster in these regions, and they don't leave, and they don't disperse out and integrate into the wider community. I should also say I'm not a fan of the kind of, rabid nationalism that we saw, flaring up into Nazism and the insanity of Italy under Mussolini. But I don't see any problem with people having some sense of pride about their customs and their language and their forebears. Everyone's ancestors have done some shitty things, and they've also done some good things. And I don't see why we need to grovel on our knees and apologize for everything that our forebears did. Because, like everyone's ancestors have participated in slavery and stealing other people's stuff. Unfortunately, that's kind of the human condition. But it turns out that, people are capable of marvelous things too. So a little balance, please.
Definitely. We don't need to go right over to the other side. And this is the one thing. I mean, while I'm going to take this as good news, because it is, it shows that people are fed up and they really want to change. To have like this, especially a libertarian like Javier, I was going to call him. Is it Javier? Yeah.
Javier Milei. And
Yeah.
and an Austrian economist to boot. I mean,
Yeah. I know. It's it's been known to quote Rothbard as well, and he's.
And his dog's named after Murray Rothbard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
really? Is that true?
Based. Yeah, his dog is named after Murray Rothbard. I mean, how based is that?
He's got clone dogs, doesn't he? 4 clone dogs apparently.
Oh, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, I think they're all clones of each other. So
this is quite the character. But of course, he's Argentina's Trump. And then, this new guy in the Netherlands is the Dutch Trump. And then, everyone who gets voted in who isn't, a screaming lefty is whatever country's version of Trump. Again, come on.
Everybody's Trump.
I suppose it used to be Hitler, right? And now Trump is the new Hitler.
The problem with calling everybody who gets in who's on the other side Trump is Trump's quite popular. He's very popular. He's very popular in Australia. He's very popular in a lot of other countries because he's seen as anti-establishment, which he's not really, but he's
not really.
anti-establishment enough that he goes against the grain of what people don't like, and people don't want that much of a change. They don't want to go with
that's how I'd put it. He's not in the inner circle. Although obviously he's wealthy. Well, how wealthy he is kind of a matter for debate, since so much of his enterprises were filled by debt. But anyway, he's wealthy enough, and but he's never, although he tried to be, because of course Trump was a New York Democrat, a major donor to the likes of the Clintons. But although he attempted to move in those circles, from as I understand it anyway, he was never really accepted by these people for whatever reason. So he's not this sort of man of the people. I mean, that's just a delusion, but he is sufficiently far from the centers of power in the US that the average person can relate somewhat more to him, and perhaps at their own peril see him as being some sort of solution to the political problems that they have there.
Yeah, I mean, people are looking for solutions. That's the good thing. Whether or not we can get that from politics is another story.
Highly debatable.
I think in the Netherlands, though, we do see. I'm just going to switch to. Now, I'm not sure if you can see the article I've just brought up yet, but if not, I'll just read it out anyway.
Yeah, read it out.
So. Old Dutch man, I always forget his name already. Geert Wilders. So there's been a few right wingers there who have tried to do what he's done. He's under constant police guard. Geert Wilders. He gets his life threatened all the time. There was another politician recently who, in the last year, who got assaulted and put in hospital for his views. And when was it? And when's this article from? 2002. So this is from The Guardian, 2002. Dutch politician Pim Fortuyn assassinated. So Dutch right-wing politician Pim Fortuyn, who led his anti-immigration party to a position of prominence in the Netherlands, has been assassinated. So he was killed for giving an interview, after giving an interview to the 3FM radio network in Hilversum, about 10 miles southeast of Amsterdam. Police said they had arrested a Dutch national suspected of the murder, but said his identity and motive was still unknown. So obviously they probably found that out. I haven't looked into it completely, but this guy is risking his life for this. He's not like trying to be a populist here. He's obviously really cares about the country. He wants to change it, because there's no way to live your life under police guard, under constant police guard, and fearing for your life, especially if you got.
And that I assume that would mean his family as well. I mean, if he has a wife, if he has children, they're also living under police guard, which is pretty horrifying. But I guess it just goes to show there really is no such thing as left-wing authoritarianism, is there? All those leftists, they're just like peace and love and harmony, and let's assassinate our political rivals or enemies.
It's all peace and love, as you said. Yes, it's a socialist utopia. Absolute socialist utopia. So
yes,
one of the arguments for getting migrants into the Netherlands is this is from the New York Times. The country needs housing, but it also needs migrants for the low fertility rate of a low fertility rate and 114 open jobs for every 100 unemployed people. Dutch people need to either throw away the birth control and wait for 20 years to accept that some of these jobs are going to have to be filled by people born elsewhere. So rather than just let the economy sort itself out, maybe if there's too many jobs and not enough people, then, tough titties, that's what happens. You don't need to import a bunch of people to take these jobs, because eventually there's going to be too many people and not enough jobs, and it's going to create a problem the other way, isn't it? So this is the socialist way of thinking, though, isn't it? There's no free market capitalism here. It's all about just being fair and letting people in. We've got the jobs. We need to bring in the immigrants. Blah, blah, blah.
It's all about a command and control economy where there's some central authority which in this leftist fantasy world is able to actually run that economy, rather than, as you say, let the free market sort it out for itself. And of course what's going to happen is you bring in people from very, very different cultures to the Dutch culture. Many of those people, of course, are going to have extremely high fertility rates, and before too terribly long, you've got this. Well, you've got the original population essentially being outnumbered by the people who've come in, who then, quite understandably, I suppose, they say, well, we're in a democratic country, so we demand our democratic rights, but there's a hell of a lot more of them than there are of the let's just say native-born Dutch. So again, I mean, it's hard to see these problems that are popping up in all of these countries in Europe as just being, oopsies. It sure as hell looks planned to me.
Yeah.
Engineered rather than, I guess, would be a better way of putting it.
It's definitely, we often talk about the left-right paradigm and the traps you can fall into when you do follow this way of thinking. It's like, well, I'm going to go left, I'm going to go right next time. You can see it happening now in Australia. You've got Peter Dutton, apparently, who's on even par with Albanese as preferred prime minister now. So, and it's just the same. It's like, oh, left, right, we've got to choose one of them. We might as well choose this guy next and see what he does, and then they'll do something stupid. Or
as Upton Sinclair described the Republican and Democrat parties in the US, they're just two wings of the same bird of prey. Yes, there's no. I mean, they say they have statements about their values, which would lead you to believe that they really are different parties. But how different are they when it comes to the policies that they implement? The differences between them are far outweighed by the similarities. I mean, and we saw that so clearly during COVID. It didn't matter whether you lived under a Liberal government or a Labor government, say at state level. I mean, obviously some states went completely batshit crazy, but it wasn't like New South Wales under Gladys, the Premier named Gladys, was some paradise of freedom. It wasn't the Florida of Australia by any means. So, and it was Morrison, of course, as Liberal Prime Minister, who called the pandemic before the WHO announced it, and then, put the entire country under lockdown, shut down the borders, and entered into, whatever the hell contract with these vaccine manufacturers, which we stupid plebs who paid for this crap aren't even allowed to see. So, yeah, difference between Labor and Liberal, only at the margins.
Yeah, it's very marginal. And they like to talk about what they would have done or how unjust all these lockdown rules were when they weren't in power and blah, blah, blah. But we know they would have done exactly the same thing to save face anyway.
Exactly. That's right, yeah.
Yep. And look, in Argentina, you've got he's actually in power now, so he's got 56% of the vote, so that means he's pretty much got the majority there. But in the Netherlands, they got 37%, and I think they need 74 seats to form a government. So he's still got to go through that, and as far as I know, they haven't done that yet. So he may or may not even be prime minister over there. We'll have to see. But the good news is that over there it is quite a balanced system. I guess there was something like 14 parties or something which got votes. So
It's much more of a multi-party system, and the really reassuring thing that I heard in regards to that Dutch election is that the party of Mark Rutte, the WF prophylactic that they had as their previous, criminal in chief, his party, like support for them just fell through the floor. So they're barely holding any parliamentary seats at all. So again, the people kind of went, we reject you outright, and threw the bums out.
And to go back to your point earlier, they were actually a right-wing party. So the Rutte's party is centre right. So it just goes to show you it's exactly the same.
Yep.
I never would have thought that until I heard it. Right wing. So
none of these labels mean a damn thing, do they?
No, they really don't. But on to some actual good news now. So we have had a bit of a win in New Zealand. It's not a huge win, so don't get too excited. But I've got the letter here, which I'm not sure who it comes from, but I'm assuming it's the people that put the people's letters together in the first place. So it's our collective efforts have done it. The New Zealand government has said no to the WHO amendment for the 1st of December 2023. So New Zealand will reserve its position on the WHO's time reductions for future amendments. New Zealand First and National Coalition Agreement especially states under the heading Strengthening Democracy and Freedoms on page 9 and 10 that the government to uphold the principles of liberty and democracy, including equal citizenship and parliamentary sovereignty. The parties will ensure a national interest test is undertaken before New Zealand accepts any agreements from the UN and its agencies that limit national decision-making, and reconfirm that New Zealand's domestic law holds primacy over the international agreements. As part of the above, by 1st of December 2023, reserve against proposed amendments to WHO health regulations to allow the upcoming government to consider these against national interest tests. So do you know much about this, Robyn?
Yeah, only what's been shared, within our stand-up circle. I think it's incredibly reassuring. As you say, it's not an outright rejection of the WHO, the treaty, the IHR, whatever. But it's a pretty positive sign that the New Zealand government, obviously, which the people voted in to replace the lovely Jacinda, another WEF suppository. How about that? It's very seems evident to me, at least, that the new government is actually taking the will of the people a lot more seriously. What's your read?
Definitely. Without a doubt. So the government that's in now, I've heard good and bad things. Mostly good, but they are still a mainstream party. Funnily enough, they have also, part of the coalition is a Libertarian Party. So we've got two countries with pretty much the first two Libertarian parties that have shared power or been in power, I believe, in the history of politics. So
astonishing.
It's pretty good. It goes to show something like that, and I think libertarianism has really taken off over the last few years.
It's as Joni Mitchell sang, and I used to be such a Joni Mitchell fan until she went batshit, during COVID, and so many of my musical heroes did. And it's really sad.
Rage Against the Machine.
Can't yeah, Rage for the Machine, Offspring, all of them. They just sold out. It was so tragic. So few of them stood up. Anyway, as I was saying, as Joni Mitchell sang back before she sold out, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. I mean, we've taken the democratic underpinnings. We've taken basically liberty, freedom for granted in the West. We just didn't put enough value on it. And then the whole, COVID schmovid came along, and suddenly, by no means the majority, I would say the majority of people do value protection or the illusion of safety and protection over freedom. But a significant enough minority of people recognize that their freedoms and liberties, including the most basic liberty of all, the right to decide what goes into your goddamn body and the bodies of your children, a significant enough minority of people saw that liberty was being taken away and said, hell no, I ain't standing for that. And whereas before they might have considered voting for a libertarian party was a little bit fringe, a bit risky, they're now seeing that what is far more risky is just voting for the status quo, keeping the status quo in place, with these parties like say, the Liberal Party here, the Republican Party in the US, all these supposed right-wing parties who are supposedly founded on principles of individual liberty. And that, they just tossed that out the window when this whole COVID BS came along. So yeah, more and more people are saying, do you know what? Status quo is the real risk. I'm going to take the risk of voting for a libertarian because, what could possibly be worse than the shit we've got now?
Yeah, definitely. And especially after what they've been through, I think you have to speak to a lot of Kiwis who live there to really understand the trauma they went through. And as far as I know, the ones I have spoken to, it sounds like it was a lot worse than what we experienced in Victoria, because over there, it's very, very isolated. Each town is very isolated. If you're in a small town, and they wouldn't just shut down cities, they'd shut the whole bloody country down over a couple of cases. And the towns over there already struggle with mental health, suicide's a big thing.
Yeah.
I in my previous job, I used to have to make calls to New Zealand and speak to business owners, and they were not in a good way. And at least two of them, probably I think it was two separate people, told me that they knew people that had died from heart attacks after they had the vaccine. And this is just on a business call, opening up to me about this, and I'm like, wow, I couldn't really say much at the time because all my calls were recorded, but it was just crazy to hear what was going on there. My dad, as well, was the same. He was very, very much when he got the jibby jab, but now sees what was going on, sees how evil the whole thing was over there. And there was so much hate towards Jacinta Ardern, especially after just the demonization of the people of New Zealand. And
the
then
statements that she made and the look on her face when she made them,
of
the things
absolute
that she
joy.
said about people going into quarantine, and if they don't submit to testing, well, they'll just have to stay an extra couple of weeks. And it was really, it was the face of evil. And I don't know, I mean, I think it's interesting. Apparently these people, I don't know, they seem to have so little insight into how pathological their actions are that they make these statements, on video, knowing full well that it's going to be beamed around the country, that'll actually be shared around the world, and they don't even have the common decency to be ashamed of themselves for the things that they say. I mean, it's quite remarkable. Yeah. So, New Zealand. You thinking of moving back there yet?
Oh, hell no. A few more problems than that. But yeah, I think it's hard to, once you get to that level though, as a politician, especially when you're guaranteed a job, you got that revolving door of that globalism going on, where because someone like Jacinta Ardern, she's taking care of.
The job you get after politics, it pays so much better.
Yeah,
so much better.
So if you've already bought into that, then why would you be ashamed of anything? You're like, well, let's go from here to, I'm going to go to the where would she be going, to the WEF, or she'd be going to United Nations?
She got a gig at a US university, didn't she?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
among other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, the thing that just popped into my head when you said that actually, Mitch, is the audience for those kinds of statements, it isn't the people who are purportedly the audience via the press. The audience for those statements is the puppet masters, isn't it? That's the insight that just came to me. It's like those statements are like, look what a good psychopath I am. Am I meeting your standards, oh great and mighty Klaus? Am I hammering my people hard enough for you? Am I making their lives miserable enough? Am I reinforcing enough just how unworthy they are? Yeah, it's so disgusting. Yuck.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to have a shower just after speaking about her, I don't know, there's something just
It's like,
it feels like
office
moral
politics, isn't it?
contamination.
Yeah. Yeah, her and old Danny Andrews are the same. Her predecessor? No, that's what comes after again, not predecessor.
Successor.
Successor. God, I think my brain needs a bit of a rest. He was, oh my God, he looked like he was even worse. So I'm glad that he got kicked out when he did.
They got royally turfed out. Good to see. Good on you, Kiwis.
It's funny, you raise a really good point there, because I have thought about it like that before, but not as eloquently as you just said it, which was, it is a bit like just a macro scale of office politics. It's like just trying to impress the boss, to move up the ladder. And that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Look at me kissing up and kicking down. Yeah. Have I earned the right to ascend another level on the power pyramid? Klausy boy.
Yes.
Or whoever's pulling the strings. Because honestly, I mean, he's just the front man, isn't he? He surely cannot be a really serious player. I mean, it's Klaus Schwab I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The guy's just such a it's just such a the stereotypical Bond villain. Like how can this be a serious man?
Yeah, I mean, he's the perfect person for the job, really, isn't he?
We have penetrated the cabinets.
Yeah, just to use that
and
kind
I
of
bet
language.
they enjoyed it too.
Yeah. Especially Justin
I've heard
Trudeau.
about those parties they have up there in the Bohemian Grove.
If you haven't seen the Alex Jones documentary on that, it's worth a watch.
I have.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
How he made his name originally. So.
Yeah, it's quite the undertaking.
So there was this. This is from the expose. It says the centre-right National signed coalition agreements with Libertarian Act New Zealand and the populist New Zealand First. So New Zealand First is Winston Peters' group, and Winston Peters has been part of the government for years. He's kind of just that little, I guess, that backstop to make sure nothing goes too crazy. He's quite a controversial figure in New Zealand, very unliked, and but at the same time, a lot of people respect him too. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen there. But there was a
like you put on the brake to stop them going, too far.
Yes, pretty much. And he's always had minor support from people. I think he got like 7% of the vote or something like that, which is barely anything. But when it comes to a coalition, it doesn't really matter. So the new coalition government has only agreed to reserve its position on the amendments to allow a national interest test to be conducted. So they have concerns that the reservation is not possible under the current 2005 international health regulations to which we are bound. See Article 62, which relates to the reservations. It is silent on amendments, whereas Article 61 rejects express refers to the ability to reject amendments. So it looks a little bit confusing there. So they're not really sure if they can reject it, which I'm pretty sure they can. As a sovereign country, you should be able to do that. And this is the whole point.
I think that's what James Roguski has been saying as well. They can reject them. And my take on this is, if they're thinking, "Whoa, can we reject it?" Well, what's the WHO going to do? Send its army? I mean, I know that they're threatening all sorts of economic sanctions. To which I say, great. So the IMF is going to say we won't give you loans. Yeah, fabulous because we know what IMF loans do to countries. So like take your money and stick it, because there's plenty of countries that are moving, you know, outside that Western hegemony. And I'm not saying that the BRICS are going to be the savior of us all, right? I don't buy into that particular version of reality. But the emergence of the BRICS is proof that the supposed rules-based economic order imposed by the West, it's not the only way to do business in the world. And so anyway, if countries refuse to abide by WHO's demands, what is the WHO going to do? I suppose you know, people might say, well, don't tempt them, because they do have the UN, and the UN in a sense does have an army, so-called peacekeepers. We know what a marvelous job they've done wherever they've been in the world. Yeah, but anyway, I guess, you know, some country has to just be the first one to say, you know, up yours to the WHO. We're not playing ball anymore.
Definitely, peacekeeper is one of those words like friendly fire, isn't it? It's just
collateral damage.
The opposite. So they're not the only country that's done it. So we have Estonia and we also have Slovakia. So two not redundant countries there. They're both, you know, reasonably well-known countries, especially around the EU there. I'm not sure if both of them are part of the EU. I'm pretty sure they are.
Slovakia recently voted in a former, like a guy who was formerly considered a lefty, and they voted him in on a platform of saying not a single cent more to Ukraine.
There we go.
Yep.
So you've got I mean, we forgot to bring out Viktor Orban before as well, who's the Hungarian Prime Minister, I believe, who's also very, very anti-immigration and anti a lot of the stuff going on. We got Poland as well, which was part of the story here, which is going to come up soon. We'll talk about Poland and their rejection of Pfizer. So there's a lot of stuff going on. There really is a lot of pushback on this, and just to show you as well. So hopefully I've actually got it here. There we are. So this article from The Guardian, this is about this respiratory illness in China. So China supplies data to WHO about clusters of respiratory illness. So they actually had to request the information from China. So, and this is the WHO had asked China for more information on Wednesday after groups, including the Program for Monitoring Emergent Diseases, reported clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children in North China. So this is the process we're in right now, where I think not exactly a bad process where you request information from a sovereign country like China. But if these amendments go through, and depends, it'll be in 24 months, or if the IHR amendments pass now to be 12 months, is that correct? For if the timeline gets reduced. So either in 24 months or 12 months, this won't be the WHO saying, oh, can you give us information? It'll be the WHO saying, lock down your borders, or you'll be committing international crime because
and give us information, or we will come into your territory whether you like it or not.
Yep. And so that's what we've got to look forward to. And I mean, they can do this on a whim. You know, I can guarantee something this happens, they're going to be pulling the trigger on something quite extraordinary. If that does.
Oh, they've already defined a wide range of issues that could be, you know, redefined as public health matters, including climate change, and even things like, you know, gun violence, or no doubt they'll think seriously about defining, you know, anti-trans sentiment as being a public health crisis. And, you know, there's basically no limit there, you know, literally there is no limit to the kinds of situations that the Director General of the WHO could define as a public health emergency. In terms of just the public health emergencies of an infectious nature, again, I mean, the wording as it stands now is that the DG of the WHO can declare a public health emergency if he has a suspicion. If he sort of wakes up one morning and says, I think there might be a nasty infectious disease in Botswana, you know, there doesn't need to be any actual proof.
Yeah.
that there is an infectious disease that really threatens humanity. So, which by the way, as many people have pointed out, you can't have certainly a naturally occurring virus that is both highly contagious and highly deadly. Because if it's highly deadly, you don't spread it around because you're lying in bed, quietly dying or noisily dying, perhaps. And if it spreads widely and easily, that's by at least for respiratory illnesses, that means it ain't deadly, right? Because in order to be spread around, people are well enough to actually be still moving around.
Yeah, it's that basic sort of information about virology that you think people would have learned by now over the last 3 years and done the research, but they still haven't. They still haven't. So
Yep.
you still say that to people like, wow, why did so many people die of COVID then? You're like, oh, God. It's,
God, where do we even start?
Yeah.
Died of COVID.
Yes.
Yeah. You mean like the guy who died in a horrific motorcycle smash, or his chute didn't open while he was parachuting and he tested positive of COVID. Yeah, right. That guy who died of COVID.
Yeah, it's funny actually. I was reading the stats on the Australian government statistics and the ABS. So and the COVID deaths now, they actually say died with COVID. So even the ABS is saying that now. So it's it's really changed a bit. It's really changed a bit.
Yeah. Too little, too late. But yes, they are. I actually think they're sort of quietly backpedaling, trying to sort of step away and basically doing the the sort of he did it, no, he said that they said that they gave us orders, no, they gave us orders. It's all blame shifting on a truly industrial scale.
Without a doubt. We unrelated, but I read an article yesterday about thalidomide and about how Albanese is about to apologise for the thalidomide poisoning and the government's role in that. So that was 60 years ago now. So it looks like we've only got another 57 years till the government apologises for what they've done here.
And that's a reassuring thought. Yeah, on the bright side, and this is something, since it's Good News Week, this is something that I guess I've been reflecting on is, in the past, it has taken a lot longer for false flags to be revealed as such, for countries' war propaganda to be revealed as being absolutely false, and we're seeing this happen a lot faster now. So I count that as a good news story. I mean, think of how long it took for the atrocity propaganda that roped, in particular, the US into the First World War. The Germans bayoneting Belgian babies and cutting open the stomachs, or the abdomens of pregnant women, and crucifying nuns and all that completely outrageous crap, which never happened. But it actually took years for reports to be written that revealed that atrocity propaganda was absolute bollocks. And then if you look at the 40 beheaded babies, sorry, I left out a step. The incubator babies, it took a number of years for it to be revealed that that trembling Kuwaiti girl who made the statement about the Iraqi soldiers came in and they took the babies out of the incubators and left them to die on the cold floor. It actually took quite some time for the full story behind that to be revealed, namely that she was the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador and that she was coached to say all that by Hill and Knowlton, the PR firm that the tobacco companies hired to burnish their image back in the day. Anyway, so it took quite some time. Now, how long did it take for the 40 beheaded babies propaganda to be completely destroyed? I know that there's still some people who cling to this, like Ben Shapiro, but the idea that who is just completely a lost cause. But anyone who's actually paid any attention to not the news, but to sources which are seeking to verify or otherwise this atrocity propaganda, have acknowledged that the 40 beheaded babies thing was absolute tosh. And it didn't take long at all.
Yeah, they don't
Same
even
with
talk about
the-
it anymore.
They don't know, they dropped it. And the same, I mean, the rape stories, which I remember the first time we spoke about this, I had a particular horror about that. I guess you do as a woman. And again, you know, the notion that that the Hamas militants raped Israeli women, no, that's gone without a trace. They did not do that. Now, you know, is it bad that they killed civilians? Yep. Is it bad that they kidnapped civilians and took them as hostages? Sure, that's bad. But that's not, you know, decapitating babies and raping women, right? So there's a big difference between bad things that terrorists do to try to get political leverage and acts of just, you know, total barbarity, like decapitating babies and you know, and raping innocent women. Anyway, so the I guess what I'm saying is that the largely because of the decentralized media, people are, or you know, a significant minority of people anyway, are kind of busting through the state-sponsored propaganda a hell of a lot faster than was the case in the past. So that's good news. And there's just more people who are just predisposed to be suspicious. Like if a government official opens their mouths, you can assume they're lying. Like there's more people who just have that as their basic supposition. I'm going to assume you're lying until proven otherwise, which is pretty good place to start, really. Especially given the officials we have right now. You'd be a bloody idiot to trust any of them.
I think that's a good position to take on anyone, really, to be honest. You know, you just until people prove themselves, then especially in the public eye, you shouldn't believe what they say. So I mean, and what you said is precisely why we're seeing these online safety bills, you know, air quotes, coming in all around the world, is because they're losing control of the narrative, and they need to bring it back to some form of the narrative they had, you know, like you were saying, as early as the 90s with the Iraq War, the first one with the babies in incubators. That was the first Iraq War, wasn't it?
It was, because it was the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, which, you know, truth be told, Saddam had actually checked in with his American buddies and said, I'm going to do this, like, you know, Kuwaiti invasion bit. Are you okay with that? And they're like, no worries, Saddam, good mate of ours. He does it. And then they go, oh my God, you know, Saddam's invading Kuwait. So moral of the story, you know, don't make friends with these people. They'll always stab you in the back. No, just too late. Same for poor old Gaddafi.
And also anybody that is an enemy of the United States used to be a friend, or used to work for them.
Like Osama bin Laden or Tim Osmond, depending on you know, on how you prefer your names.
Tim Osmond, his CIA name, wasn't it? So
that's right. Good old Tim.
So obviously we have a few more people that are woken up, and they understand what they're talking about. And hopefully that most of those awake people have gone to Stand Up Australia's website and written a letter to or at least an email to their local member of parliament. But so if you have done that, or even if you haven't, we have decided that it would be a really good idea to do what the Kiwis have done and create a people's letter. So just to sign the people's letter, all you need to do is go to standupnowaustralia.com.au /the-people's-letter and just sign the letter. You can read the letter, then you can sign it. We've already got about 7,000 signatures on the thing in 24 hours. So it's I
mean, when I signed it, there were 5,000, so picked up an extra 2. That's great. Keep signing, people. I mean, what will this achieve? We don't know, but it's only going to cost you a minute of your time, and then of course after you've signed it, share it. You know, put it on your socials if you still have them. Email it to people. You know, tell your neighbor about it over the back fence. Just, you know, get as many people to sign this as you possibly can, because in case you haven't noticed, our governments don't serve us, right? And they've got to the point where somehow or other they don't actually think that that's their role, and so this letter, I guess, is a way that we, the people, can attempt to have our voices heard directly, since our supposed representatives ain't representing us.
Yeah. And the thing I love about this letter too is it just goes to show you that governments are never going to have it easy again, because the people have woken up and they realize that we've been lazy. We've been lazy in our democratic process, and we need to get more involved in it. We need to go stop saying, "Oh, we're too busy," or we're watching the latest reality TV show on TV. Just get into it.
You get the politicians you deserve. So
Definitely.
look at the motley crew we've got here in Australia. I guess we deserve them. So we've got to clean up our act and give our vote to people who do deserve it. And that's by and large the minor parties. There's some good eggs in the major part. Well, one of the major parties anyway. There's some good eggs like Senator Rennick, of course, but and Alex Antic as well. But by and large, it's the really good eggs are those in the minor parties.
Yeah, definitely. They certainly are. But there are, as you said, the Liberal Party does have quite a few. I can't think of any in the Labor Party, but
no,
not one, unfortunately.
Not a single one. Oh God, that's a total clown show over there.
But if you want to learn more about that as well, Rebecca Barnett, the wonderful journalist in WA, has written up something about it. This will all be in the show notes, by the way. There's also an interview with our wonderful Katrina from Stand Up Australia, which was on some community radio in WA, which I've linked to here. And now on the screen right now, Robyn, I've got some flyers you can actually print out, done by the wonderful Mandy, who's just joined our team in the last couple of months, who's doing an awesome job. And
amazing.
These flyers, we got them in color or black and white. So print them out, post them in your street, and get people to be aware of this. So even if this the IHR amendments go through this year, it's not the end of the world. It does reduce our time, but as long as people understand what we're getting ourselves into, it's really important that we do educate people. And this way is a great way to do it, because they can do it in their own time and they don't have to get lectured by one of their friends or a neighbor. They can just look at it and read it for themselves and then research it themselves. Mm-hmm. So do it if you can. If you've got a printer, even if you just do a couple of houses on your street or whatever. And
or put a notice up on your local community notice board, on your library, your local library notice board. Just get it out there.
Definitely, I've got one of those sticker machines. The brother little sticker machines there, which I bought to do
the preferred sticker machine for White Rose.
Yes, yeah, I'd put up quite a few White Rose stickers in Brisbane. Every time I went for a walk, and I went on a lot of walks over COVID. So they were plastered around everywhere.
When we were still living on the Gold Coast, my favourite one to hit was the bus stop outside the local school, and so I'd swing by with a dog and whack up a sticker, and then go by a few weeks later, and quite a few of the ones that I put up there lasted a decently long period of time.
Yeah. The secret is to have them a little bit weatherproof, because they do fade pretty easily, especially once they get a bit wet.
Yeah, so. That's right.
So we will get on to the next story now. Anyway, and this is a great one, because I just love to see Pfizer suffer and what is happening around the world now. And this does answer a few questions as well for people of why are they doing this? So Pfizer is suing Poland over vaccines. So this is how we got here. US pharmaceutical giant Pfizer is taking the Polish government to court over missing payments for 60 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine it developed with BioNTech. The lawsuit, which comes as Poland prepares to for a change in government following its October election, marks the culmination of a 19-month struggle between Warsaw and Pfizer over a glut of vaccine doses. So the gist of this article is that the wonderful Ursula von der Leyen, who's the president of the EU, did some backroom
and a stellar human being of matchless integrity
and amazing hair.
Oh, fabulous hair. Put Margaret Thatcher in the shade.
It does not move at all when she's talking.
It's the Maggie Thatcher helmet hair, you know.
So these were shady backroom deals done by her and Albert Bourla from
Yeah,
Pfizer.
by a text message.
Yeah, which amazingly the text messages got lost somehow.
Oopsie.
Yep.
Oopsie.
But this is something that obviously the European Union, they make the decisions for the countries now. So they decided they were going to buy a certain amount of vaccines. Same thing happened in Australia. I think we bought 8 to 10 vaccines per person from Pfizer.
Per person.
Yep,
For every
Swiss signed
man,
a
woman, and
contract.
child in the country. I mean, who negotiated that contract? That contract, you know. And what were they promised? What were they promised as the price for their Judas betrayal of the Australian people? You know, what 30 pieces of silver? You know, a lucrative position with Pfizer after they left government. You know, I'd like to know.
Well,
Inquiring
I
minds
certainly
need to
think
know.
people in the TGA and health department and stuff were instrumental in that, looking for jobs afterwards. It's still my firm belief that, you know, most politicians are pretty normie. So they were thinking like, oh well, we just got to get the vaccine to Australia so we can end this
Yes.
pandemic.
And won't this be an electoral winner for us if we secure this marvelous vaccine for the people? Because it was at first.
Yes, it was at first, wasn't it? But the reason why Poland hasn't, well, why they say publicly anyway, why they don't want any more is because people don't want it, for one. They're saying that they've run out of money because of the crisis in Ukraine, because they border Ukraine and there's a lot of refugees coming over the border. But I'd say the biggest thing is because it doesn't work. It doesn't work and nobody wants it. That's why people don't want it.
And that's why people don't want it, because it not only doesn't bloody work, I mean, it doesn't work in the sense that it increases your likelihood of getting COVID. It doesn't work in that it's the wrong strain. Or that, you know, like the wrong configuration, I suppose, matched to a strain of COVID that is long extinct. And it harms people. Apart from that, though, really top-notch product.
Yeah, it's a really top-notch product. You know, it's at best it might save 5 lives but kills 4 people. So that's from a scientist that I read today. So, and he was a mainstream scientist. So it's really great, isn't it? And that's not counting the people killed.
Sign me up now. Yeah.
So Pfizer, and yeah, so if you're wondering in Australia why you keep seeing ads and native ads as well on the news telling you to go get your shot, that's why, because they've still got to give you another 4 shots each to fill their contractual obligation to Pfizer. So it's nothing to do with.
And they paid for those shots with your money, your taxpayers' money.
Yep, and it's
or actually more to the point, by inventing money, by printing money out of thin air, which is the reason why we have such skyrocketing rates of inflation, right?
Yeah.
Just in case you hadn't noticed.
Yep. For more information on that, go watch the documentary by James Corbett called "Century of Enslavement," and that is cracking.
Absolutely, yes, good tip.
So here is Pfizer. Now you probably still can't see this, but we've seen in the last 5 years, there was a massive peak around 2022, end of 21, start of 22. I wonder what happened then. So when they released the vaccine, Pfizer was all giddy and they were making a lot of money. But ever since then, people realized they suck and their product's crap and it kills people. And they're now down to lows. So they were at highs of $59, almost $60. And right now they're sitting at $30, around the $30 mark. So they've halved in value, the whole company. So no wonder they're going after countries to pay them, because they're going broke.
Yeah, and the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, he's suing them for not over the Pfizer product, but over what was it? It was some kind of, I think it was an antibiotic that Pfizer made in partnership with this other pharmaceutical company called Tris. And so Ken Paxton's actually suing them for, basically it's like fraud, you know, misrepresenting their products. So they're really copying it. Poor Pfizer. Even though they're psychopaths, I guess you have to feel sorry. No, actually you don't. No, they're just a disgusting company. I mean, this is not Pfizer's first rodeo, as I'm sure our listeners know. They they paid the biggest criminal fine in corporate history for one of their previous pharmaceutical misadventures. So this is a psychopathic company, just flat out.
Yes, and that they're starting to be found out. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You would have
Yep.
thought it would have happened when they got fined last time for
Yeah.
what was the
Like,
drug again?
if you're what was the drug
It
that
was
they
the
paid
hard
that
drug, wasn't it?
money for? Yes, it was. Was it? It was one of the Cox
The
2
Vioxx?
Dextra. No, Vioxx was actually Merck's.
Ah, yes.
No, I think it was Bextra. I have to look that one up. Yeah. Anyway, one of our listeners will no doubt know. Drop it in the chat if you know what drug got Pfizer. The 2.3 billion, I think, was the fine that they paid, or 2.1. It was humongous anyway.
Enormous.
And you'd think after that governments, any government agency involved in procuring drugs, say, like we have our pharmaceutical benefit scheme over here. You'd think that a government would take a look at a company that had just paid out, a fine over $2 billion and say, maybe we shouldn't do business with this company. They have clearly proven themselves to have zero ethical standards. But no, the governments kept on doing business with them, kept on procuring drugs from these corporate criminals. And what does that tell you about governments and agencies like the TGA and the FDA and Medicare in the US that kept on, again, buying drugs from Pfizer, and then entered into a contract with Pfizer to buy these COVID shots? Seriously.
Yeah, there's compromise through and through. So, but it's not wasted on people though. There's an article here about the falling vaccine rates in England. And it was really interesting to see and made me quite happy as well. So this is titled, No, Avoid Them All. Anti-vaccine conspiracies spread as UK cases of measles increase. So this is all about how measles increased because people aren't getting their shots. So we hear this all the time. It's one of the oldest scare tactics they use.
I think I've seen this movie. It happened in the US with the Disneyland measles outbreak. That where no one died,
and then in Samoa,
that terrible outbreak. And pretty much everyone who got measles had actually been vaccinated against it in that terrible outbreak. Yeah, so I've seen this movie before.
Yeah, they always use it, and there's the whole thing about Samoa, and it's it's really, really not great. But they use it and they continue to use it. The last time they used this in the UK was with the whole Andrew Wakefield saga, and you saw vaccine rates fall after that. So they really started to put the fear mongering on. But there's a little graph here which I found really interesting. So it says only 74% of children under 5 in London have received both doses of the MMR vaccine, 9.1 points lower than 2013-14. So that's massive.
That's a huge drop. That is a massive drop. Do you know what I found, particularly amusing / irritating about that article was the Guardian journalist. I'm using that term very, very loosely. She referred to, one of the mothers in this, online chat group, falsely stating that once the vaccine is in your body, the heavy metals and the contaminants get into your brain and all your organs. There is nothing false about that statement. No. Nothing at all. I mean, just ask Christopher Exley, what is the fate of aluminium in vaccines? And sure, not all vaccines, not all childhood vaccines contain aluminium, but plenty of them do. What is the fate of the aluminium from those vaccines? It gets into the brain, folks. Christopher Exley has found it in people's brains on autopsy. So, to state that this claim by the woman who was urging the other mother to not vaccinate her children, that's not a false claim. That is absolutely the truth.
Yes, but it's false if they say it's false enough in the mainstream media. So, which is why
it's being fact checked. by a 21-year-old English major with no science background. Oh, fact checker.
It's funny too, like the whole thing about Andrew Wakefield as well. They're saying he was debunked, and it was they don't cause autism. And it's like, if anybody actually bothered to go read his paper and then bothered to research what he got in trouble for in the end, it had nothing to do with the paper. He got in trouble for taking blood from 2 children at one of his
birthday
children's
party.
birthday parties. So it had nothing to do
Yeah.
with the paper. And in the
And
paper
the
itself,
blood was for an experiment, by the
Yeah,
way,
it's
just
for
in
an
case you're
experiment.
thinking, what is he kind of hooked up with the, with the lizard people? No,
He's not a vampire.
The blood was for a study of healthy children who did not have any developmental disorders to compare them to kids who did.
it's
Yep.
probably not the best place to take blood, like as a scientist.
No.
But
Yeah,
it's,
and look, in retrospect, he acknowledges, okay, that was a boo-boo, but it's hardly some great ethical breach. It's certainly not enough to deregister him and subject him to the kind of vilification that he has been subjected to for decades. And by the way, yeah, like you say, who's actually read the Lancet paper? I have. You can still read it even though it's been retracted.
Yep.
And there's no claim in that paper that vaccines cause autism. The paper was specifically about a bowel pathology, bowel symptoms, and a corresponding bowel pathology that Wakefield and his 11 or 12, I think 11 co-authors found when they actually investigated children whose parents brought them in to say, my kid has a developmental disorder and he also has these terrible bowel issues. That's what that paper was about. Right? So read it. Don't just listen to the lying liars on TV or on the radio or wherever the hell it is that you're getting your news. Wakefield did not claim that the measles vaccine causes autism. He just didn't.
No, he really didn't. He found that the strain of measles in the children was the same as the vaccine.
The vaccine strain of measles was actually in the lesions in the bowel of these kids who had awful bowel pathologies.
If you went right now to Google and you search for any studies on gastrointestinal distress in autistic children, it's been proven time and time again now that is the case. It's the 2 and 2 go hand in hand. I'm not saying that every case is to do with the vaccine. I'm just saying that those 2 things go hand in hand.
They totally do.
It's beyond proven.
That specific element of Wakefield's work has actually been verified by multiple teams of researchers in other parts of the world. So Wakefield was debunked. Well, of what? Of what? What specific claim? He just wasn't. He wasn't debunked.
He's debunked. Debunked. That's all that matters.
He's an anti-vaxxer conspiracy theorist, and he reminds me of Donald Trump. Bingo.
who goes out with Elle Macpherson, so he hasn't done that badly in life.
Yeah. Are they still together?
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, because you can't find anything about that on the web. It's quite interesting.
No, I think Australia is ashamed. She's going out with a conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer. So maybe
good on Elle. Basically, up yours to all those who want to have a go at him. Yeah, good on you, Elle. I have more respect for her.
Definitely.
Precisely because, although it's kind of sad, his marriage broke up. But anyway, that life happens. Yep. So we got anti-vaxxers on the rise.
Anti-vaxxers on the rise.
What do anti-vaxxers do? They homeschool their children, right? Am I right?
In our last good news story of the week, and that nice little crossover there from Robyn. We have a number of families choosing to homeschool in Australia and around the world keeps growing. I wonder why. New data from Queensland released last week show there has been 20% increase over the past year, with 10,048 registered homeschoolers, up from 8,461. Over the past 5 years, there's been 152% growth in primary students and 262% growth in high school students who are homeschooled in the state. At the same time, Queensland,
keep it up.
Oh yeah, Queensland's looking at cracking down on parents who homeschool. Can't have people learning.
The state wants to
themselves.
propagandize your children. You can't take them out of government training camp.
How will they learn if they're male or female or not?
Or non-binary?
Yes.
Even better.
I forgot about that. Sorry, you don't have to have a gender D. You can be fluid.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So There are concerns homeschooling needs more regulation because parents only have to report once a year and are not subject to testing, such as NAPLAN. Isn't NAPLAN
Yeah,
just for
as compared
schools
to kids in
anyway?
state school who are completely illiterate and innumerate. I mean, there's homeschooling parents aren't educating their children to the same standards that we have in public schools. And you're saying that's a bad thing?
Yeah, God, they're probably best not to do the NAPLAN because it will just show how ineffective school is in the first place.
Yeah. Oh,
So
100%. Yeah.
in New South Wales, 12,352 students were registered for homeschooling in January 23, a jump of 37% on the 2022. In Victoria, the most recent figures show there were 11,912 homeschooled students as of December 22, an increase of 36% since 2001. So that is pretty bloody good news, if you tell me.
I reckon that is some of the best news that I've heard in a long time because, if now I have to be honest here. I do know a small handful of people who are, homeschooling their children, and there's not a whole lot of education going on, right? But I think the vast majority of parents who elect to homeschool, they do so because they either have concerns about what's going on in the schools, like this crazy gender stuff. Their kid wasn't actually learning in school, either because the quality of the teaching is so low, or there are so many disruptive students in the class because they're bombed out of their brains on junk food and medications and God knows what else. Or the kids were being bullied, which I know was referred to in that particular article about, principal reasons why parents homeschool. There's all sorts of reasons why parents elect to homeschool. And the vast majority of homeschooling parents that I know of are really deeply committed to giving their kids a very high quality education, and very frequently homeschooled kids do outperform academically kids who go to normal school, school. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for it, but I do it's a serious commitment, and parents need to take it seriously because, you're either setting your child up for a bright future or you're handicapping them, if you're slack with this. But no, I'm all for pulling your kids out of state school. So whether you homeschool them, whether you send them to, Montessori school or some other school that doesn't doesn't teach to the test, like NAPLAN is the absolute bane of my life, because teachers spend so much time preparing kids for this stupid bloody test rather than focusing on the learning needs of their kids, and also rather than focusing on designing interesting curricula that will engage kids and their natural desire for learning. Like I must say, my kids both went to a Montessori school from the earliest you could start at Montessori school, which is age 3, up to the ages of 10 in my son's case and 8, I think, in my daughter's case. And they loved school so much. And when they would hang out with the kids who lived in our street who went to regular school, they were always absolutely amazed to hear these other kids say how much they hated school, because my kids loved school. And why is that? Because Montessori schools are great places for kids, and they're fabulous. The way that they teach kids all sorts of concepts is through learning methods that are actually geared to kids. What a concept!
What a weird concept. Yeah.
How amazing. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Montessori schools, but also parents can get the Montessori learning equipment and use it at home. Fantastic for teaching kids maths and reading and all manner of stuff.
It's good enough for the royal family, isn't it? Apparently all the royal family children are all Montessori.
Is that so? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
interesting.
So Harry and what's his name?
Meghan. Oh, Will.
Will and Harry, both Montessori, and I think their kids are Montessori if they're old enough for that as well. So
yes.
yeah, that's how we first learnt about it. But yeah, one of my sons goes to Steiner, and absolutely loves it. So absolutely loves it. Yeah. And coincidentally,
it's very child-centered education.
Oh, it certainly is. And coincidentally, my wife runs a business where she helps children who just fall through the cracks at public schools. well, not even public schools, just in the general curriculum. So
Yeah.
Stand Up Australia has done an interview in the past about it, about the method which she uses to teach kids, but it's just not being done at schools. So a lot of the time when you do send your child to school, they don't learn anyway because they're not being taught the
That's
appropriate way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that whole move away from teaching children to read phonetically and going to the whole word approach set a whole generation of kids back in their literacy.
And they're still
It's just,
doing it. They're still
are
doing
they
it.
really?
Majority
That
of
is just
schools
abominable.
still do the whole language.
Oh,
So
that is
yeah,
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
drives her nuts. Drives me nuts
I
as
bet.
well. It's just it's just absolutely insane. And
If you were a conspiracy theorist, you might actually come to the conclusion that they wanted kids to be, barely literate and barely numerate because I guess stupid people are a lot easier to propagandize.
yeah, well, I think that's my theory anyway. They know that if the ones that can figure it out, they'll figure out how to read by themselves, and the ones
Yep.
who need to learn the proper way, they're more
Mm.
likely to end up being cogs in the wheel of society and aren't going to rock the boat, and they're going to take on those shitty jobs that nobody else wants, and
Yeah, exactly right.
it's just
Exactly right. Because no one ever sat down and helped them realize their potential.
yep, yeah. So get your kids out of these shitty schools, homeschool, or find a Montessori or a Steiner
Yep.
school. So
If my kids were still school age, I would be pulling them out of school. I'd be, it's a hard thing, of course, but I'd be figuring out how to homeschool them. There is no, like, schools are not safe places for children, not in any sense of the word safe. And also they're not learning anything, that they're not learning any of the skills that you expect them to be learning, and the things that they are learning are things that you absolutely don't want them to be learning.
yeah. They're learning exactly what society wants them to learn, basically.
Yeah.
People like that.
Mm.
All right. Well, that's been our good news podcast. So the only one we've done for the year, but it goes with the one that me and Peter did last year, which is mostly good news as well. I think it's been pretty good news. Obviously, there's always a little,
I think so too.
there's obviously a little element of reality that comes in with all these stories, but yeah, hopefully we'll get more and more of this. Now, I just wanted to ask you before we do go, I've got just wanted to ask you about your prediction for next year. What do you think is going to happen in the trajectory that we're on?
Okay, can I have two, please, sir? May I
Of
have
course.
two? All right. Prediction number one. The kind of good news that we've been covering tonight is going to intensify. So there are going to be more and more people who use the power that they have to create a platform on social media, on forums like Substack. People who realize that doing citizen journalism is as simple as picking up your camera and filming stuff that you see in the street, and doing vox pops as you walk down the street. So there are going to be more and more people who get more and more engaged, and the more the powers that shouldn't be the powers that want to be but have no right to be the powers that they currently are, the more that they put the squeeze on us, the more people are going to wake up and push back. So I think we're in for a very torrid time of it in the next couple of years, because as viewers of this program will, I'm sure, be aware, there's a deadline looming, 2030. There's a reason why all these people talk about Agenda 2030 and here's where we need to be by 2030 and whatever. They have a plan, and we're apparently not quite on track for their plan. So they're going to escalate the number of crises. I would fully anticipate that there'll be many attempts to get another COVID going. The ones they've had a crack at this year, like trying to revive the fear of HIV and monkeypox and all these other silly things, they really didn't fly. But they're going to, they them those are going to keep this up. There will be more financial crises for sure, because the financial crisis is what ushers in the CBDC and gets people to accept it. And okay, so that's my sort of broad prediction. I I have I suppose, a very dire prediction, which is I suspect that there is going to be a very, very major false flag terrorism event. And so what I'm about to say will probably get us fully demonetized from any channel. I think the Israelis are going to pull a false flag. They've done it before. They did it with the USS Liberty. Look that up, folks, if you haven't heard about that one. But their PR effort is really going sour because it turns out that most people don't really like the idea of bombing hospitals and ambulances and burying children under rubble. And so the Israelis are getting really sloppy with their propaganda. And as they lose more and more public sympathy, they're going to be very, very tempted to do a major false flag terrorism event. And an obvious target would be the US. But Europe could also be.
They've already done it there, haven't they?
I know. Yeah, that was the real kind of.
And I'm not talking about the Liberty either.
It's Israel's 9/11.
Yeah,
well,
I thought they already had a 9/11.
Yeah, but they did it over there the first time. Now they're doing it over in their own country. Oh dear. So that's my prediction. So when you hear about scary Muslim boogeymen doing terrible things to people who look a lot more like you, just be alert. This could well be a false flag.
Yeah, I hate to agree with you there. But I do agree with you. And if you look at the intentional polarization of the whole religious question at the moment too, with the influx of Muslims into countries, like we're saying before, that's not by accident. That's to get the heckles up and to make people scared of the Muslim problem again, which I have to say I think is fraught with I don't think it's like especially extremist Islam is not the greatest thing going in the world, but neither is any extreme religion. But it's
if you want extreme, try Zionism. Whoa, those people. Yeah.
The extremities of all these religions and all these actors going on at the moment is what is going to get us into these problems. And you are going to see at least some form of terrorist attack in the next year.
Yeah.
But my prediction is that you're going to see a further groundswell of right-wing politicians being installed. Donald Trump will become the president again next year. There's no way.
That's bold. All right. Yeah. All right. That's a bold one. Good for you.
But it does get worse after that, unfortunately, because I do believe that after that happens, there will be as civil war as it can get over there in the States. It'll be enough to tear the country apart and maybe even separate it into not the United States of America. But I do believe we're heading in the right track as well. But we can't expect that it's going to be smooth sailing. We're not just going to wake up out of the slumber and it's going to be, okay, it's all going to be, peace and roses and everything, because that's just not how it works. I think there's going to be some tough times coming up, but I think we are heading in the right direction. Yeah. And that is good news to me.
Yeah, 100%. And look, you don't get anything worthwhile without struggling for it. I mean, that's just a general principle of life, isn't it? But I mean, it's the height of delusion to think that these crazy people who want all the power and all the resources and a lot less people on planet Earth, it'd be delusional to think that they're just going to say, oh, it turns out the people don't really want what we have in mind for them, so oh well. We'll just take our bat and ball and go home. No, they're going to fight, and they're going to fight really hard because they see their beautiful dream of a world that they run slipping away from them. So yeah, they're going to fight. We got to fight back.
Yeah, definitely. When you've been planning something for 100 years, you're not going to let it go in 6 months. If that's what happens.
You bet. Yep.
So we'll see what happens, but let's hope we have some more good news. Just before we do go, I just got a message come up, which I think is pretty well worth mentioning, and that is that Senator Katie Gallagher, Finance Minister, is introducing the Digital ID Bill tomorrow. So it's time for us to visit, call, and write to your local federal MPs and all senators in your state now. So One Nation will be opposing this loudly, obviously. So yeah, that's from Malcolm
Excellent.
Roberts.
Good tip. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So sorry about to end it on that note, but it is worth
Our work
sort of
is not
knowing.
done. Our work is not done.
No, it certainly isn't. So keep an eye on what's going on in Parliament and just continue your democratic duty as an Australian and do what needs to be done.
Yeah, you bet. Don't go back to sleep. It's not time for that yet.
No, it certainly isn't.
Yeah.
But with that, we'll see you next year, Robyn, and have a great Christmas and even better New Year's.
Same to you.
And have a good time showing your mum around and stuff. So
Yes, looking forward to it. And to all our loyal listeners and watchers, hope you have a wonderful Christmas or whatever the heck it is you celebrate at this time of year, which is entirely your own choice, religious or not. Just celebrate spending quality time with the people that you love and just being appreciative for what you do have. I mean, if you live in Australia, you got it pretty good by world standards, even if you're struggling with your, rapidly escalating mortgage and food prices and whatever else. We're still pretty damn fortunate to have been born. Well, I was born in this country. You weren't.
no, I wasn't. I'm an immigrant.
But yeah, we're pretty fortunate to be born in countries that have had peace and prosperity relative, well, I mean, by world standards, very good prosperity for a long period of time. Let's not squander the gifts that we've been given. So, yep, be loving to the people that you're with, and have a good rest over the Christmas season, because we've still got a lot of work to do in 2024.
Definitely be loving to everyone, even if you don't agree with them.
Yeah. Yes. That's very. I think a famous person whose birthday we celebrate around this time of year, although he wasn't born then. I think he said something like that, didn't he, Mitch?
I think so.
Love your enemies as yourself, something like that. Seem to remember that from Sunday school back in the day.
Seemed like a lovely bloke.
Does, yeah. Could be grumpy at times, though.
Yeah. Just a little bit. Especially his dad. He's the worst one. Yeah.
Oh, all that smiting.
Alrighty, well, Merry Christmas, everyone, and see you next year.
See you next year, folks.